Creating a Lagoa effect from scratch is actually extremely easy to do and very, very simple, as you're going to see in this video. However, working with Lagoa and doing more advanced effects, that's where things get a little tougher, okay? Or a lot tougher, actually. But I'm going to go ahead and take you through this process, and you're going to see that it's not really that much of a big deal. So what I'm going to do in this scene is I'm going to go ahead and create a Lagoa effect completely from scratch, right in front of you, step by step, so you can see how it works. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about what makes up a Lagoa effect. Okay. In SoftimAge, to create a Lagoa effect, you're going to need an object that emits particles, and then you're going to need an object that interacts with those particles. If you don't create these objects, guess what? SoftimAge will actually create them for you automatically. So it'll create a cube or whatnot if you haven't defined any of these objects. So you need these two objects. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is a simple example. Let me go over to primitive. I'm going to grab myself a sphere. What I'm going to do with this sphere is I'm going to let me add some subdivisions to this. That's good enough. Radius, think about that, radius is perfectly fine. I'm going to call this cereal bowl. So I bet you already probably know where I'm going with this. Let me open up the PPG again, and I'm going to make this go to about 90 degrees, so it's something like this. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Just make the bowl however you want. I'll just go up 90 degrees. I think that's fine. You can increase the subdivisions if you like. You can make this pretty high res, actually. I'm going to go for about, 48 looks pretty good. Yeah, that's not too bad. So this is my cereal bowl. And let me switch over to shaded view. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take all of these polygons, and let me just rush through this real quick. Let me duplicate these polygons. Where's my duplicate polygons? Going blind here. Go to a front view. Just going to make the inside of the bowl. One important thing to note, Lagoa prefers when your collision objects, which is what this bowl is going to be used for, Lagoa prefers when your collision objects are closed volumes. It doesn't like it when you have open edges. You can end up getting some quirky results if that's the case. So let me scale these two axes like this. Then I'm going to invert these polys. Let me hide that grid. It's getting in my way. I'm just going to take these edges here, and I'm going to do a bridge. And that's good enough. Okay, so I've got myself a little cereal bowl here. Right, not the nicest looking bowl, but hey, it'll work. Alright, let me move this up a little bit. Now I'm going to create a null. Now, this is very important. The other thing that we need is some object that's going to emit particles into our scene. I'm going to use a null, and you're going to see me use a null quite a bit. I'm going to use a lot of nulls, actually. The reason for that is nulls are one of the objects that Lagoa likes to use for emitting particles, but you can use geometric objects. Like this bowl, for example, could become a particle emitter as well. And I'm going to show you how to work with that in a moment. Right now I'm going to use a null. And let me go to the options here. I like to make the null a set of rings just because just looks better in the viewport, makes more sense. I'm almost done. I've got my two objects here. All I have to do now is tell SoftimAge to create a Lagoa effect using these two objects. So that's really easy to do. What I'm going to do is I can go over here to the particles menu, go to create, and under the Lagoa section, you notice that I can choose a lot of different things. Okay? These down here, from pouring liquid to the throw elastic clusters, these are sort of like presets that you can use. Okay, so try to automatically set some stuff up for you, which is pretty good when you're starting off with Lagoa because it makes it very easy and it automates the process. So I recommend using these when you're first starting out with Lagoa. Me, I don't like to use these presets because I already know what I'm going after. So I like to use these up here, either volume emission or mesh advection. But I'm not going to use mesh advection right now. We'll talk about that later. Volume emission is what I'm going to be using. Okay. So I'll create volume emission, and when I click on that, SoftimAge will go into a pick session. First, it wants you to pick your particle emitter. What object is going to create and emit particles? That's going to be this null. After you select it, SoftimAge is going to ask you, okay, what object is going to interact with those particles and become a collider? Okay, that's going to be this bowl. If I had a table, I would use the table as well. It could be anything. It could be the head of a character. It could be a character's hand. It could be a bowl. It could be a box. It could be a floor, sidewalk, street, anything. Okay, so I'm going to select the bowl. And then SoftyMod is going to sit here, and in a couple of seconds, it's going to automatically create the entire ice tree for me. And this PPG is going to pop up. So let me actually lock it down. And I don't see my ice tree or anything like that. That's because I need to open it up. So I'm going to go to my ice layout. Just move this over here. It's a great layout to work with when you're working with Legoa stuff. So the next thing to do is Legoa works by playing the timeline down here. So if I hit play, you'll notice some particles are created. They fall down with gravity, and then it's going to stop right there. That's because by default my frame range down here is set to 100. I like to set this to at least 1,000, but normally I like to go with 10,000 so that this thing can continue to play. So if I hit play, now it's going to keep on playing, and you'll notice that the particles land on the bottom of the bowl and they break apart. Okay, so it's like a bunch of little marbles that are loose, but they have some properties where they work together to sort of mimic a fluid, things like that. So I'm going to stop, go back to the first frame, rewind basically. If I hit play again, it's just going to do it again and again, and I need to change some stuff. So what it did over here, if you look at the Explorer, it created this point cloud. It's an ice point cloud, and it's called Basic Emission from Null Point Cloud. Not a very exciting name. So let's change the name. Let's call this, let's call it Cocoa Puffs or something. You know what, let's call these, instead let's call this Cuckoo Puffs. So I'm going to pour myself some cereal here with Cuckoo Puffs. Make sure you have the Cuckoo Puffs selected, and refresh the ice tree view so we can see the ice tree. So I'm going to maximize this so we can look at this. So here's the actual ice tree here that makes the entire Lagoa effect work. Okay, I'm going to be talking about all this stuff one thing at a time a little bit later. Right now I just wanted to get the Lagoa effect working and started. Okay, so let me delete the Cuckoo Puffs over here. Or, actually, let me hide it instead. Let me hide the Cuckoo Puffs instead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can just, on top of this, create another Lagoa effect. Let me go to pouring liquid. I'm going to select the null, and then the bowl. Should create another point cloud. And it's connecting everything and doing all its stuff under the hood. It's a very automated process, which is great because it makes it easier. A lot of people used to complain when ice first came out. For the first year or so, people used to complain that ice is still too hard to use. You advertise it as being artist friendly, but it's so difficult. Not anymore. They've made a lot of improvements to ice. The SoftyMod development team has done a great job of simplifying it and automating a lot of the process. So down here you can see my new ice tree for my new pouring liquid point cloud, and it uses a simple compound. And if you look at the compound's PPG, very easy. It's got very few parameters for you to play around with. If you're new to this, you may not understand what these parameters do. Okay, like surface tension, internal pressure, external pressure. Gravity is pretty obvious. Density is another one. So there's some stuff here you may not understand at first, but when you're done with this tutorial and you look more into Legoa, you'll understand what these parameters do. So don't worry about, mastering what these parameters do and how to work with them right now. Don't worry about that. Okay, so now when you hit play, and you can notice now that instead of one small clump of particles dropping down like a sack of marbles, now we're getting a constant stream of particles that fall down from this null, land at the bottom of the bowl, and they're being collected. It's like dropping a bunch of little peanuts or something inside of a bowl. And this thing will continue to emit these particles until I tell it to stop. Okay, so it'll just keep on going until I tell it to stop, or my computer catches on fire. No, I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. But that's the pouring liquid compound. You can see it's a simple compound, and if I explode it, it's got a bunch of nodes in here. If you got good photographic memory, you'll notice that most of these nodes, except for this one down here, this pass-through node, and this one over here, most of these nodes were part of the first ice tree that I showed you. So if I show you the Cuckoo Puffs ice tree, here's all these nodes. Let me go back to the pouring liquid, refresh that. This compound basically contains most of those nodes, and it's a compound that kind of simplifies the process, caters it more toward pouring fluid. So you can use this pouring fluid to go ahead and get your Lagoa effect kick-started and going pretty quick. And there's a lot of other ones. Let me stop the simulation. I'll go back to create. There's some other ones over here, like jello, sticky paste, breakable structures, elastic clusters, different things like that. But these are little presets to get you kind of started. But when you're going to go ahead and do your actual effects for, projects or whatever, I don't really recommend using these. You can get started with these, but I like just going and doing a volume emission myself from scratch and having complete control over everything that I'm doing. That's the basic way of creating your first Lagoa particle effect inside of Softimage. Pretty easy, right? It's just a couple of button clicks and boom, you're done. Very automated, very simple process. Alright, so I'm going to end this video here, and in the next video we're going to start to get deeper into Lagoa and start to look at these nodes over here, what they're for, what they do, and how they work.